I have a diary in which I write a lot in. It has been with me for 5 years, including very intimate moments. Basically, by intimate, it includes things like my crushes and relationships, body issues, social media account info, aka my literal passwords, and even things that I would never willingly share, like my sexual interests and what I like to look for in a partner. As a child, my parents would only preach privacy to me and my siblings. Looking back at my childhood, I can see that they preached this idea way too much. I guess that's why in my mind, I never would have expected for my privacy to be breached this way. Okay, so in the middle of the night, I ended up waking up and being incredibly thirsty, so I went downstairs to grab a drink, and to my shock, I see my mom, my dad, and both my siblings sitting together on the sofa with my diary in their hands. I was so confused and I couldn't utter a single word. I just went up and snatched my water bottle and my diary and went back to my room and just stayed there. The next day in private, I grabbed my parents to another room and asked them what the hell I saw yesterday. At first, they tried to play it off as an accident. But what the fuck, I literally saw all 4 people around my diary. But after more pressure, they admitted that they have been constantly reading my diary with my siblings, and their excuse was, we just want to make sure that our child is okay. So I phoned one of my friends who I knew was looking for a roommate and agreed. In the span of the next few days, I secretly removed all my stuff and moved into his house, and eventually by the end of the week, I was gone. Once at his house, I just broke down and I just couldn't imagine that all my privacy was breached by the people who would preach respecting privacy to me the most. My parents tried calling, but I ignored them, and my siblings keep texting saying that I'm too sensitive and even have insulted me mentioning some of the private stuff that they read in my diary. So I blocked them and also changed all my passwords. Am I the asshole for moving out after realizing that my entire family would constantly read and discuss my diary with each other?
Am I the asshole for refusing to have my facial scar photoshopped for the wedding? Me and my fiance Aaron are getting married soon. We're done with wedding planning, although my future mother-in-law basically disagreed with every arrangement we had. While Aaron and I were discussing the wedding photos and my facial scar that I had in my 20s came up. Aaron suggested we had this area photoshopped, and I laughed thinking he was joking, but he said it was for real. He explained this is what photoshopping is for, and these are wedding photos that will last years, and he'd rather them be flawless. I asked if he saw my face as a flaw, and he immediately apologized and said absolutely not. He then admitted it was his mom's suggestion. He said she had a point this time, and I refused, and we began fighting. Aaron said I was overreacting, and it's not about the scar itself, but overall the look of the photos, and I was being too sensitive for no reason. I had an argument with my future mother-in-law after she nicely tried to talk me into considering it. Most of the women in the family agreed with her and Aaron and said this is what photoshopping is for, and lots of people do it, especially when they're not happy with a certain area and their appearance. But I'm not bothered by it, and they're saying I need to go to therapy for past trauma, but I don't think this has anything to do with it. Aaron says he loves me no matter what, and I shouldn't be hung up on this.
Am I the asshole for giving my son's new bike away after the prank he pulled on a girl he was friends with? So recently I found out my son Jacob, a 15-year-old male, pulled an incredibly cruel prank on one of the girls I'll call Ashley that's in his friends group. I know this girl. She's been to our house and even attended Jacob's birthday party a month ago. She seemed incredibly sweet, if not a bit shy, so when my oldest son Mark, a 17-year-old male, came to me and told me that Jacob had asked Ashley out on a date as a prank, I was stunned. I of course asked how he could know this, hoping as any mother would that it wasn't true. But Mark showed me the family tablet, which we all use, but mostly my sons do, and it seems Jacob forgot to log out of Discord. I read the long series of messages between Jacob and his friends as they mocked Ashley all through his heartless prank. I was speechless. And that's not even getting into how he was talking, like he was some thug and not a 15-year-old living in a gated community. At first, I couldn't figure out what to do or how to proceed. I'll admit, I never once imagined either of my boys would be the type of person to do something like that. But there was no way in hell I was letting this go. So after a day of thought, I decided what was going to happen. First things first, he was grounded for how long, I'm not sure. Secondly, I'd gotten Jacob a bike for his birthday, but it hadn't arrived until the day previous. And I planned to give it to him when my parents came to visit since they'd been unable to make his party. But instead of that, I showed him I knew about the prank and told him that he was grounded. Then I made him carry the new bike out of the house in the closet to the car before driving to Ashley's house, him crying the whole way. I'd called her parents early and explained everything. And so once we got there, I had him carted into their front porch and ring the bell. Then in front of me, Ashley, her parents, and God, I had to and gift her the bike. Even I apologized to her, saying I didn't raise my boy this way and what he did was unforgivable. I also called the parents of the other boys who were a part of this little stunt, and they all seemed rightfully horrified by their son's involvement. I thought I'd handle the situation as best as I could, and my friends agreed. Though once my parents found out that I'd made Jacob give his birthday gift away, they said that I went too far. I still feel like what I did was right, but having my parents more or less dogpile on me like this actually made me wonder if how I handled the situation was too extreme. Am I the a-hole here?
Storytime about how I'm a homewrecker and I don't regret it. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. I've been dating this guy who's married for a year now. But here's some backstory. We went to high school together and I was so in love with him back then. I never had the courage to tell him that I was in love with him in high school, so nothing ever really happened. I went to college and I didn't see him for a few years. But when I saw him again, he was married with a kid. At the time, I did have a boyfriend, so I never thought anything would happen between us. But the opportunity arose and I took it. One day I saw him at my gym and I decided right then and there that I wanted to be his girlfriend. I started dressing up really sexy to go to the gym. I'd wear sports bras and really tight leggings, and I had no shame. I was doing everything I could to get his attention. But like I said, he was married. I would go up to him at the gym and say hello, and he would say hi back. He never really had a full conversation with me, and I could tell that it was because he was married. So one day, I worked up the courage to ask him for help at the gym. I just pretended not to know how to use a machine, and he fell for it. We ended up talking for about 15 minutes, and that's when I told him that I had always had a crush on him since high school. He got really nervous, and I realized that he was attracted to me. So I asked him for his number really casually. He did hesitate for like a second, but then he gave it to me. After that, we would see each other at the gym almost every single day. And of course, I would take the opportunity to talk to him and flirt. And eventually, he started flirting back. Remember I said I had a boyfriend? Well, I told him that I had a boyfriend just to get him jealous. And it actually started to work. He started asking me about my boyfriend and I could tell that he was getting jealous. So I told him that my boyfriend was a loser and that I was looking for a way out of the relationship. So after that, every conversation we ever had at the gym was about how I was going to break up with my boyfriend. You see what I was doing? I was getting him so interested in my relationship that all he would think about was me being single. One day I mustered up the courage to ask him if he wanted to go get a coffee with me after the gym. And he said yes without hesitating. We were at the coffee shop for about an hour, but he never really talked about anything important. I mean, he talked about his kids sometimes. So of course I started asking about his wife. And finally he told me that he wasn't happy in his marriage. You see, this is what I was looking for. And after that, I would try to give him advice about his wife. Eventually I told him that it sounded to me like he needed to get a divorce. One day I decided to kiss him after the gym, and he did not reject my kiss. We made out in his car in the parking lot for 2 hours. He told me he would do anything to be with a girl like me. As we were making out in his car, finally his wife called him. That's when I took his phone and I told him that he needed to give me attention. And just like that, it worked. We started going on dates and everything. Mostly just to the movie theaters during the day when no one was there. So now that I had him, I knew that the next step was for him to get an actual divorce. Slowly, I started poisoning him against his wife. Okay, I know I sound super evil, but this was the only way I was going to be able to do it. And I did know that he was unhappy with his wife. Apparently, all she really cared about was the kids and not him at all, which I guess is understandable, but you don't neglect your husband after you have children, right? For 2 months straight, every single day I would tell him that he needed to get a divorce, and I showed him that he would be so much happier with someone like me. I had him wrapped around my pinky. Eventually, he started agreeing with me. This is when things really started to change. Whenever he'd get into a fight with his wife, he would come stay at my apartment. He had never done this before. A week later, he decided to confess to his wife that he was seeing someone else, which was the happiest day of my life. He asked her for a divorce, and she had no choice but to say yes. She still begs him to stay with her. Now we live together in an even bigger apartment. His wife hates me and calls me a bitch anytime she sees me. But I won. And yeah, we're already talking about getting married. His kids hate me though. What should I do about that? Go for your dreams. Bye.
My stepsister is marrying my ex-boyfriend and she needs me to attend and pretend I'm cool with her because people are giving her a hard time for hurting me. My 25 female stepsister, SS 23 female, is getting married to my ex, 26 male. We were as close as any two sisters growing up. My mom and her dad met when we were 8 and 6, and we got along really well from the get-go. My ex-boyfriend and I broke up 2 years ago. He cheated on me and I found out about it a week after he proposed to me. 5 to 6 months later, stepsister told me that she and my ex-boyfriend have started dating. I couldn't believe my ears. I was very angry at her, but the rest of the family, mom, stepdad, 2 half-sisters, didn't think it was a betrayal at all, and my mom once yelled at me to grow up and move on. I gradually distanced myself from my stepsister without making a fuss. I just poured myself into my studies instead and hid behind the "I'm swamped" excuse. I started dating my current boyfriend, CB, 25 male, about 10 months ago. The only problem is that stepsister used to have a huge crush on him, and she still, to this day, texts and DMs him. They never dated. I haven't told anyone in my family that I'm seeing someone. My stepsister and my ex-boyfriend got engaged, and they have sent the wedding invitations last month. Wedding's in June. I didn't RSVP because I don't want to attend. Last week my mom asked me to visit. When I got there, mom was waiting with my stepsister, her BFF and maid of honor, my half-sisters, and my ex-boyfriend's sister. It was an intervention. My mom started by saying that I needed to stop alienating myself from everybody and get over the hurt. My stepsister is getting married and she wanted me as a bridesmaid. I told them no. Stepsister started crying, saying I'm ruining her wedding. She asked if it has to do with me not having a +1 because she could pair me with one of my ex-boyfriend's single best men and I wouldn't feel lonely then. I got really angry and I told her I don't want to go to her wedding because I don't like her. She started crying again, calling me bitter and a hag for purposefully wanting to hurt her on her big day. I left. My mom called me later saying if I didn't show up at least as a guest, I'm cut off the whole family. You see, they need me there so people see there are no hard feelings between us and that I have blessed their marriage because she has been getting a whole lot of crap from the family for what she did to me. I am so angry now. What's between stepsister and I is broken beyond repair. Why is it so hard for them to understand? Plus, I do have a +1 should I decide to turn up, and stepsister would regret the day she invited me then. I have half a mind to do it and ruin her day. I love my mom and my sisters, but I'm tired of them choosing stepsister's side. And I know mom is serious that she would cut me off if I didn't attend. She loves my stepdad very much, and upsetting stepsister means upsetting him. Any advice on how to tackle this? Because whichever way I look at it, I am the loser. My 28 female husband, 36 male, doesn't understand the difference between a stay-at-home mom and me working at home after we had the baby, and it's causing problems. I have never made a ton of money, but I have always made enough and felt like my work was worthwhile. I work as a graphic designer for an alternative publication. Not the highest paying gig in my field, but a good work atmosphere. I also used to freelance web design before we recently had the baby, but it's been too busy since I got pregnant to do much freelance work. I can do both old school graphic design and web design and have a good portfolio. We have been together for 8 years, married for 5. I was very lucky when we got pregnant, although our daughter was very planned. I was considering different work options to stay with the baby, and my boss basically said, keep your same job, same pay, and work from home if you want, plus 3 months of paid maternity leave. My paper also gives us pretty awesome healthcare. The baby is on my healthcare, not my husband's, because he's as mediocre, but mine is like basically the best. Almost no copays, everything you can imagine is covered, down to acupuncture and hypnosis even, etc. So that was a plus. I also never wanted to stop working entirely because I value my independence and my job is also a creative outlet for me. My husband makes a lot more than I do, always has since I've known him, as he was already in his firm when we met, and just made partner at his firm around the same time we found out we were pregnant. He has always worked long hours, but actually has been able to work a little less since making a partner. So he's down to 55 hours a week. He's been as high as 80 before when we met, but it's kind of steadily declined. His job is high stress, big law basically, but he does really enjoy it from what he says. We had our baby girl 4 months ago and she is adorable and awesome. We're very happy, except I've been back working properly just this month. No pressure to do so, but I heard about them since my workmates are also my friends and I offered to help out a few times. It has been harder than I thought, mainly because I'm basically doing 2 jobs at once. I'd figure you can imagine it'd be harder than normally working to also have a baby that needs stuff. Our baby is actually a really good baby and she isn't the neediest or at the neediest age, which worries me for the future, but it's still harder to maintain focus, etc. Our house is an effing wreck and my sister suggested I look into a maid service since we are really struggling since the baby has come. I used to do the majority of the chores, but my husband helped out when I was very pregnant and couldn't get around well. He basically stopped again when the baby was born. Since I used to get home before him and leave after him, his long days, I used to do basically everything but the dishes. We always ate out a fair amount. I cook half the nights, takeout or restaurant half the nights. But we live under our means in most areas, so that was never considered a big expense. I'm not the world's greatest cook. The bathrooms, counters, laundry, etc. all fell to me, but it was a lot easier before the baby. My normally nice, calm, loving husband flipped out and got very stubborn when I approached him with the maid service option. They'd come one time a week and it'd be $75 weekly, but if we paid by the month, it would be only $250. He said basically, why would a stay-at-home mom need a maid service? I tried to point out I'm still working. I'm a work-at-home mom, not a stay-at-home mom, but he said it should be easier to do my work at home than in office, so he didn't see what had changed. Maybe when our daughter was making messes, but he thought getting a maid service would just discourage me from getting into the swing of things again. He even suggested it'd put me at risk for postpartum depression, which I don't have any symptoms of, thank goodness. So I thought maybe he was really stressed when we first talked about it and it was just bad timing. I tried 2 more times and he seems to toe the same line. I suggested he start picking up more chores then, and he doesn't see why things would change. We had a baby, things change. I don't really understand him not getting that. We talked about some changes but never a maid or the chores, so I guess this is poor planning. It's worth noting, 1. My husband is understanding of the mess and not complaining about it. He sees it as a temporary adjustment period. 2. My husband spends time with our daughter and is bonding with her, I think. And he does give me some me time regularly, which I appreciate. We're still breastfeeding now, so I'm tethered to the house or baby a lot, but he is being a very engaged and active dad when he's home. And he is trying to be home as much as he can. 3. My husband didn't yell. He did become frustrated and unreasonable, but he is never rude or abusive. He just doesn't understand my reasoning or need here. 4. We have the money, we live well below our means, and we won't be traveling this year, we usually do. And the baby won't cost nearly as much as our trips usually costs, so we have extra money in addition this year. The delivery cost us literally nothing as my health insurance is that good. This is rare, I think, from what I've heard. And I lost no income except a little less freelance work, which we always treated as extra anyway. I am worried about 2 things. 1, the messy house in the short term and finding a solution. But 2, the fact that my husband doesn't see a need for things to change due to a baby and doesn't seem to realize how hard it is to do my work all day and be a mom all day just because I can do it in my pajamas. For example, trying to figure out when I can get a shower, if I want one before my husband gets home at 7 p.m. or if I don't get up early enough before he leaves at 7 a.m. is like solving a effing Rubik's Cube. My days are much, much harder now. I love my baby and I'm happy to be with her. I'm just saying, and I feel like he has no concept. My mom, 60s, wanted to force a reconciliation between me, 35 female, and my sister, 32, but it backfired. I don't know if I want her in my life anymore. Background. I started dating my brother's best friend when I was 16. We were together until I graduated high school when he proposed and I rejected it. There was a lot of drama with my family asking me to reconsider because we could have a long engagement or make a promise to reconcile. My relationship with my brother, 36, suffered for a while, but the one with my sister, 32, never recovered. She was sure my ex was the best fit for me and became unbearable when she started dating my ex's brother. My ex was invited everywhere by my siblings, even to some family holidays, but I didn't say anything since he was their friend too. That is, until my sister started to push for us to get back together. My sister did everything from trying to get us on blind dates to making us share a room during holidays. No matter the occasion, my ex was invited to it. After a while, I had enough and asked my parents to intervene. They were clear with my siblings and stopped inviting my ex to things or allowing him to tag along so much. It was slightly better, but while my brother backed off, my sister didn't. It all came to a crash when I met my husband during a semester abroad. He was from another university, but the same country, and we just clicked. It was magical for me, and we got engaged after dating for a year. My family was very happy for me, except my sister. She kept insisting I was in the honeymoon phase and will grow out of it. I clearly didn't, and after many, can't express enough how many, fights and attempts to reunite me with my ex, I simply let her know if she pulled anything again, I will stop talking to her. What does she do after that warning? Makes me her maid of honor and requests I spend all my time with the bridal party, also known as my ex, and sets one of her friends as my husband's date. We didn't realize until we were at the reception and the poor girl tried to make a pass at my husband. My sister said that since we are not married, it was okay to explore things with other people. I left the party and the next day spoke with my parents and brother, explained that while I won't make them choose, I will not talk to my sister ever again, and if they try to fix stuff between us, I will simply cut contact with them too. My mom was devastated and tried to negotiate, but my dad and brother said they would respect my decision, and apart from 2 attempts from my mom, I haven't spoken, written, or anything with my sister in the past 6 years. My sister has tried everything to reconcile with me, from gifts to tantrums, but I simply don't talk to her at all. If we are at a family event or dinner, I simply act like she doesn't exist. At first, she made snarky comments or tried to create drama, but since nobody backed her up, she gave up. She did have a meltdown when she was informed she was invited to my wedding, but would not be a part of any preparation. My brother says he feels guilty for going along with it for so long, and his relationship with my ex has suffered. They still talk, but they are not as close anymore. The issue. My mom's birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and I finally announced we are expecting our first child. This is not the first grandchild, but it is the first granddaughter. Everybody was very happy except my sister. My mom noted that and asked me for tea the other day. My sixth sense told me not to go, but I wanted to be positive. The first thing I noticed when I arrived was my sister's car. Then, as I entered the door, there was my sister, her husband, my ex, and my ex-mother-in-law. They wanted to have an intervention since my childish tactic has gone for so long. My ex said that he was just trying to be romantic, but he understands I couldn't appreciate it. His mom said I was just hurting my sister for wanting the best for me, and she apologized already, so I need to forgive her. I was just sending texts to my family, dad, brother, and husband, and looking at my mom in disbelief. My brother-in-law had the balls to tell me I was a hurtful person and I need to learn how to act like an adult since I am having a baby now. Then my mom began reading a letter about how hurt she was her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong, but she was well-intended, etc. Then my sister read her letter and began crying and telling me basically another version of what the rest did. I said nothing to anybody, just sat there until my brother arrived. He was angry beyond anything I've ever seen before. He grabbed my stuff and told them all he was really disappointed and disgusted. We went outside and sat in his car until my dad and husband arrived. By then, I was just sobbing and he kept saying sorry. I am unsure what happened in there, but I sent everybody, except mom, an email with my lawyer's number information attached and stated I don't wish to be contacted by any of them ever again, and if they do, I will go to the police. Nobody has contacted me, but I know from my dad that my mom and sister are hysterical. They told him they hoped to repair things for my sister to be able to be in my baby's life, maybe possibly being a godmother. My dad is staying with my brother at the moment. They support me, but some others in the family don't. I've even had mutual friends call me since they are worried about my sister's well-being and asking me what happened since she is now going by the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family. I hate having my business in public, but I did go the public route and posted a long Facebook post about everything that happened. Sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and ex are being dragged, which, even if it wasn't 100% intended, I feel is deserved. Now, my mom has been inconsolable, which does make me feel bad, but not as bad as she made me feel with her little intervention. I agreed to have a talk with her a couple of days ago and laid the ground rules for any possible future interaction, including therapy, family therapy, clear boundaries, no sharing information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. And most important, If she ever pulls anything like this again, she will for sure be cut off. She feels this is too much, but is willing to do it. She thought it meant immediate access to baby news and it is all solved, but I told her it is a process and she needs to prove she has improved. My dad and brother refuse to talk to my sister and they keep apologizing for not stopping it earlier. We've forgiven them since they were able to move and grow. My husband supports whatever I decide, but my mother-in-law is unsure cutting my mom's access to the granddaughter is the way to go, but says it is ultimately my decision. I am torn about what to do with my mom.